must pull his own weight both mentally and physically, the perfect wingman is flexible and open to shifting circumstances. Again, the adaptive characteristics of entrepreneurial agents, a true Kersnerian, is the ideal wingman. Now, this is the explicit identity with strategic behavior is something, again, that's not necessarily unique to the Jersey Shore, but is sort of a common thread in a lot of, I don't want to say literature, but books that are being produced by jerks. Tucker Max is one, Mystery another. They really break down the sort of art of seduction in terms of game theory and strategy and statistics. Tucker Max, for example, got a law degree at Duke and went to the University of Chicago majoring in law, legislation, and letters. And so he's certainly not particularly stupid, despite what the contents of the book would allude. Similarly, Vinny from the Jersey Shore scored quite well on his LSAT and managed to get himself into law school. This situation in particular isn't so well educated per se at prestigious institutions, but did have a successful career as an underwear model. Okay, so political economy in the Jersey Shore. Wait, no, there's more. Situation on resource allocation and scarcity. Fist pumping is a dance that the cast members enjoy doing. There's various types, but in particular it can be recognized by simply thrusting your fist in the air to what is called house music, which has very loud techno beats to it. And interestingly enough, fist pumping became a club necessity when the dance floor got so crowded from the bumping house music that the only place left to dance was up. So full exploitation of available resources occurs, and innovation and discovery takes place in the presence of unique forms of scarcity. You don't really know how your optimal indifference curve runs tangent to your budget constraint until you hit it. Running out of dance space in the club led to unique forms of dancing. Pauly D and the situation on smoothing consumption. I really like this one. You can't tan in the winter, you can't creep in the winter. For those not in the know, creeping refers to hitting on hot chicks and generally sort of working the club so as to find attractive women. So you can't creep in the winter, you can't do nothing in the winter. That's why you have to party hard all summer, because before you know it, the days start getting shorter and the nights start getting colder. That's why summer at the Jersey Shore is more intense than at any other beach in the world. So I really like the fact that they're rationally explaining the phenomenon of why people on the Jersey Shore tend to invest in this sort of debaucherous behavior. It's because winters are so miserable that if you're forced into this downtime, then you're trying to get your peak higher. Ideally, you would want a circumstance wherein, according to Friedman, you would smooth your consumption. You would have a general level of enjoyment throughout the year. However, given an exogenous constraint, like the weather, and in particular, one of the seasons, it's snowpocalypse, which you guys, I've been extremely blessed in the timing of my career. I left New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina hit right when I moved to Virginia. And then I left Virginia and snowpocalypse hit, as well as a financial crisis. So I'm afraid to leave the country for heaven's forbid there be a devastating earthquake. But so Pauly D in this situation, they not only understand smoothing and concepts like diminishing marginal value, but they apply them and endogenize their frameworks into every form of their decision making. Absolutely my favorite is season 2, episode 1, Snooki as a public choice economist. This is incredibly racially insensitive, but it's hilarious nonetheless. Apparently, President Barack Obama put a tax on tanning, and the cast members of the Jersey Shore really like indoor tanning. And Snooki is explaining, I don't go tanning anymore because Obama put a 10% tax on tanning. McCain would never put a tax on tanning because he's pale. So it's a recognition that political regulation takes the form of ways in which promote the interests of political regulators at the expense of oftentimes the general citizenry. So oftentimes I defend Snooki's honor with explaining that she's a good public choice economist. And in just, for those of you guys who were here earlier, Obama has sort of like reacted and it just said that they would all be immune from the tax. So it's not like this TNA tax is non-existent. It was a tax on what was perceived to be luxurious and frivolous consumption. And secondly, Snooki is performatively a rational and ignorant voter. Admittedly, she's ignorant on lots of things, but that's not to say that that form of ignorance is not itself rational. Those of you here at GMU should know this better than others, but the structure of incentives behind voting are such that there is very little reward to becoming more informed about voting for any particular policy. Insofar as every person's vote is equal, and so if you go home and read every bill and research every political candidate to find out whose policies will be most effective to promote economic welfare or social welfare, but you spend all your time creeping on hot chicks and fist bumping on the shore, the reality of the situation is that your vote is no more powerful than yours. Say again. Right, which is to say that like she's enjoying her life and you're miserable now, knowing about all of the things that the government is going to crank down her throat. So, to a large extent, there's little to no incentive for you to actually become informed, which results in a generally ignorant voting population. One of many would be Snooki. So, again, I think that even in this show of apparently bizarre and seemingly irrational behaviors, we see these obvious expressions, not only of self-interest and diminishing marginal value and rational choice-making, but even a conscious understanding of these concepts and an application to help themselves better their own conditions. Another wonderful GMU economist, Tyler Cowen, subtitles one of his books, How to Fall in Love and Find a Dentist and Generally Lead a Better Life. And I think that on their own terms, the cast members of the Jersey Shore are in fact applying the economic way of thinking so as to themselves find more enjoyment and utility. So, what I'd like to talk about now is more the GMU research program, the notion of investigating non-conventional environments for understanding the processes that contribute to social order, in particular, the resolution of coordination games. Now, the first, and this is very much relevant to all of these concepts that we've seen demonstrated by these agents, is the notion of contextual rationality. That again, even though you're observing something that seems anomalous, observing something that seems strange and out of sync with what you perceive and presume to be rational maximizing behavior, if you understand better the local conditions of that environment and the framing effects that the agents ascribe to. In other words, in economics, we take ends as given, right? And economics is predominantly a debate about means. The way I explain it to my own students is that economists have recommendations and suggestions for both Hitler and Mother Teresa, right? We don't really care about how nice they are or how evil they are, but instead the economic way of thinking can inform both of their general life goals. Mother Teresa helping the poor and feeding the starving, and Hitler, I don't know, being a homicidal D-bag. In general, if Mother Teresa said that she was going to feed the poor and clothe the cold by means of a hula hoop contest, economists would probably be like, that doesn't seem an effective means of accomplishing those ends. We don't debate or criticize her intentions, her aims. In much the same way as if Hitler was trying to slaughter people by means of tickling them. It would also be a very ineffective and inefficient means of accomplishing that end, but we don't necessarily judge those ends. And so, arguably, I find it odd how many people have watched the show and been like, these people are just ridiculous and absurd and irrational and so on and so forth, when they're pretty explicit about their preference functions. They're pretty explicit about the things that they value. They're pretty open and honest and upfront about what it is that they like to do and how they go about accomplishing those intentions. So here we have quotes from Situation in Pauly D. So why it is so important to get in your GTL? Because GTL, Gym Tan Laundry, for those who are unaware. Because GTL puts you in your best possible position to creep, means ends. And what is creeping? It's presented